Hi guys, welcome to Windsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. We are in the cottage garden and it is a Sunday, which means we're doing a bunch of random tasks today as I prepare to head back toward the city. Today we're going to do a mix of things. I've got a couple things that have been spending a little too much time in our holding area that my goal is to get in the ground today. We also have some repotting of houseplants. I want to do some maintenance and potentially even some mulching. So it is a true bag of tricks in this video that I thought I would bring you guys along for to see what all we get done. The first thing we're going to do is repot a monstera plant, which was actually a houseplant of mine in the city that has just kind of gotten a little too big for my space. And my mom and dad weren't interested in it, but it is in desperate need of a bigger pot and a little bit more structure to help keep it upright. And we're just going to see how it goes because in all honesty, I don't really know what the process is going to look like. But let's start with that. Then we're going to go to the deer resistant bed we've spent some time in this year and last year. So with all that being said, that's how we're going to get started. Let's get you guys set up and we'll get to work. Alrighty, part one is done. Let me show you what I did. First thing we did is actually transplant this monstera. As I mentioned, my sister Molly helped me. These are aerial roots. It would be better to have a cocoa fiber post that we can have the roots grow in. We've popped some in. My mom is going to try and train it to do that. We also have this little trellis in here that we've tied it as what is in there is rooting in and getting a little more solid. That'll help try and keep it a little bit more upright because they're actually vining plants. If we didn't do any of this, it would just kind of slump onto the ground and continue on. But I've seen some really cool things that if you start with a smaller one and one of these cocoa fibers, you can train it to kind of just grow around it up the plant. The next thing we worked on is actually this bed right here, and I did want to take a moment just to appreciate these allium. These are Millennium allium, and I'm not sure if you're able to see exactly how many pollinators are on them. These are a pollinator favorite, and you can also, if you listen quietly, hear the hum. Yeah, so they're really pretty. There's two, or actually there's three. 1, 2, 3 that are in a bit of a rain shadow that we're going to fix and when we redo some watering in this area in a little bit. But I did spend some time cutting back spent astilbe blooms in here, and then taking after the ivy. I always give a disclaimer when I talk about the ivy because I know it is not always the best, especially with siding. What we've been doing is this trellis is actually about 2 inches off of the siding, and I don't know if you saw that there were some things that grew along it. Once a month we come through, we just pull them off and then put our hand behind the siding to make sure nothing's growing. and it's been able to be kept in check. We really want these arches to be like this evergreen ivy thing, and they're getting so close. Once I work some more upwards, you can see that one has reached the halfway mark. That one's pretty close. This will be the first arch completed, I think. And then the others won't be too far behind it. These ivy plants are also getting a ton of water right now, and when we do redo them, they'll get a little bit less, which will mean they'll be a little bit less vigorous, which won't be bad. We're also hoping to kind of keep them contained to the back, so you may have seen me pull some ivy bits off that we didn't really want. I also cut back some bleeding hearts, which it looks a lot different without them, but it really shows the different leaf structures. And we actually have one, two, there's an itty bitty baby here you might not be able to see, toad lilies, which will provide some fall interest. And I actually have a couple more at my house that I'm thinking about cutting up and bringing here and popping in a couple other areas for just a little bit more oomph with that show. So that's what we got done in here. And then I did pop over to this bed, cut the astilbes back, and some of the ferns were looking rough. They were all transplanted this year. So I cut back some of the sad greenery, not all of it, but just a little. I did not cut back the foxglove because we do want those to self-seed. And I just need to say I'm amazed because a number of them still have blooms on them. These guys have been blooming for like 3.5, 4 weeks, which is pretty amazing. And the pollinators are still really loving them, so they were a good buy. And I'm pleased to say I don't think we've had anything other than like Japanese beetles, as always, nibble the things in this area. Though we did do a couple of sprays right after we planted it to kind of deter them, since they had found this area. But again, the pollinators are really enjoying this. They love the nepeta, and it's really fun to kind of see. The marigolds aren't getting quite enough water, and they did languish a little bit. So I think if we did this again in the future, we might need to look at installing a little bit of drip and putting these marigolds in here a lot sooner than we did. Because I think it would still be a good area to have like a marigold border. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do, and it is so humid. It's not that hot. It's only like between like 67, 70 degrees, but it is so humid. It's not supposed to rain, but it looks like it might. So I quickly want to finish up the rest of my tasks, which include planting a random dahlia that sprouted, getting some phlox in the ground, and mulching a small area, so that is all done. But I just gotta see if my sister is ready to mulch because she's helping me with that. Okay, next part done. I ended up getting some things that have been languishing in holding cells planted, so let me give you a quick look at them and some details. We are around this bed under the maple at the edge of the backyard. We're actually right by the water, and I always like to preface this by saying this bed was not raised around the maple. It's actually where the surface level used to be. We had a problem a couple years ago that my parents ended up having to build a seawall versus like rickrack, which is what, if you ever see it like a shore's edge, just stones, it's like in no steel, it's rickrack, and that's what we used to have here. And we were experiencing quite a lot of erosion because the water comes in. This is actually the smaller part of the lake, and the water comes in from there directly onto our point. And my parents had experienced about 5 to 10 feet of erosion that they needed to stop, and they ended up putting in the steel wall and rickrack to try and stop it. And during that time, there was a lot of settling that happened here. So my dad put this around the tree to try and save it, and it's not really skipped a beat. But we've also tried to plant a number of things in this bed. We filled it with foxglove, and you might see a couple here and there. In general, didn't do anything. We filled it with snapdragons. Some have stayed, some have like actually lived 2 seasons, like this one right here has lived more than 1 season. But in general, as a whole, they did not do well. We filled it with like English bluebells. Did awful. Deer ate them. And I've also popped zinnias in here before, but I had a tray of like, I don't know, 12 to 15 zinnias that I decided just to put on the sun that we see and gets more sun, since I didn't really have another place to put them. We'll see how they do. I had planted some other zinnias in here before, and I am only seeing like 1, 2, 3 of them. So they didn't take very well. We also moved some blonde lavender in here. One of them was suspicious. One of them I thought would do well. The suspicious one did die. Here's an update. But we'll see how these do. We're still trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do in this bed, because it doesn't actually get a ton of sun. One side gets almost none. This side gets some. So it's kind of hard to do the same thing all the way around. We'd like it to be a little bit more uniform. And something that the deer won't eat, so we don't have to like fence it because it's so small. But I did plant these zinnias here. They're just a mix. Like you can see, this one right here is a cactus mix. I had some Oklahoma mix as well, Pumularia. So they'll hopefully provide a little pop of color on the side that does get that little bit of extra sun. As we make our way back up to where I planted something right over there that we'll talk about, I just wanted to pause here and show you this because this is something we planted in one of our more recent videos that I had tried to explain what it was. It's a like multifloral black-eyed Susan. Don't know, I got it from work because it spreads itself around. So I did have to put it in a place I wouldn't mind if it naturalized or controlling it. But it is amazing to use in floral arrangements. Looking a little sad because it did not like transplantation, but it is going to survive. And I wanted to point out what the little flowers look like because they are just so sweet. Usually there's more of them, and these first ones are big, and then the consequent ones are a little bit smaller. So they provide such a pretty pop of yellow in flower arrangements, or the garden in general. And I think this will be really pretty with like the late summer, oh, hummingbird fight, the late summer Lucifer's tongue, Crocosmia, the allium, and then these, plus the color of the ajuga we have planted behind it. It's just really pretty. We do have some dahlias in here, but they got nibbled down by a deer, and I'm not sure if they're going to end up flowering this year, but they are surviving, so we'll still be able to pick back up the tubers and try again next year. Anyway, this little digression. Let's go pop over there and talk about the last thing we planted. Now, this is a bed we've spent a lot of time in this year. We've done some rejuvenation pruning on the Miss Kim lilacs in here. I also planted a ton of dahlias in here, and I always like to come and be like, what's new? What are you? That's really pretty. I don't remember what this one is. But this one's patches. This one is, I think, a dinner plate mix. It hasn't started. Another dinner plate mix. And some other things are starting in here. One of these was supposed to be a bridal dinner plate, and it's definitely not. But we'll see. I think when I planted them, that my labeling was suspect. I keep looking to see if these guys have bloomed. These are hibiscus that I've been waiting to bloom. This one is a summerific, and that one over there is a summerific, and I think a summerific berry awesome specifically. And I see color on them, but they haven't started yet. This one is a little bit further behind, and it's like a midnight something. I don't remember the exact name. I'll see if I can pop it on the screen. But this one isn't as progressed. It is like the inverse of the summerific berries. They're like pink with a red center, and this is red with a pink center, and gets a little bit bigger. So we planted all this last year. I keep checking in on it because look, I mean, there's just the beginnings right there. They're going to be coming out sooner rather than later, and I can't wait. Denim and lace is looking a little sad, but still thriving. And we're back at the newly planted phlox. I'm going to show you the tag real quick. An amazing grace creeping phlox that, as you can see, is a really pretty light pink whitish flower with a red center. We got these on clearance at Lowe's. And we have a lot of phlox in various beds, but none actually in this bed. And it's something that we could really use some early spring color in here. So I think right here will be a pretty pop that we'll be able to see from the deck. This is a pretty hardy plant. It's only non-hardy in zones 1 through 2, so 3+ it is hardy in. It'll get about 12 inches wide and it's a trailer. Well, they'll say it'll get 12 inches wide. In my experience, it doesn't actually stop growing. Or it slows down once it gets quite large, but I think he'll just kind of hug the corner of this wall really beautifully and provide some pop of early spring color when there's actually really not anything in this section of the bed. There's some iris that'll be up, but not really flowering, but I think a couple of these type of things would not go amiss here as well. So I'm happy. It's been in our holding area for about a month and a half, and I'm really excited to get it in the ground. The last thing I planted was actually this dahlia right here. You guys might remember we had a rose there that was not doing well. It had a number of things going wrong, and one of the things we were a little concerned about was rosette's disease. I've talked about it in a number of different areas, and it's not actually been documented in this area, and I probably should have taken some photos before we decided to tear it out, which I forgot to do. I was in contact with David Austin because I'm concerned about 3 different roses in my yard. They did not think what was wrong with it was rosettes, but they gave me actually a government site that I had to submit some information to, so that is tracking it, since it is an incurable disease that is pretty deadly to roses and spread by pollinators. So I've sent everything over to them and I haven't heard back from them. That was like 3-4 days ago. I did not do that for this rose, which I probably should have. There was only one documented case of rosettes in my area. And it was not particularly close to me, and it looked very different than what I was seeing. I was just worried what I was seeing was the very beginning stages of it, and if that's the case, I want to tear it out right away so it doesn't spread to other things. But we did tear a rose out here. We're not sure if that's what it had, but it really wasn't doing well, and it wasn't getting enough sun, so we were going to have to move it anyway, and we decided ultimately, because we were worried about it being diseased, it was better to destroy it and start over. Oh, it's starting to rain. So let me quick finish this. But what I did is we found in my little trays, which are still sitting here months later, if I'm confessing, I overwintered dahlias in these trays. And there were a couple that we thought had died that we had just kind of left in the tray. And one of them sprouted. And my mom popped it in a pot, and it's been doing really well. I've been meaning to get in the ground. So I popped it there. I have no idea what it is. I'll see the flower and maybe be able to guess. But that'll help provide a little pop of color. There's probably actually not enough sun for it either, but I didn't have another place to really put it this year, and that'll do. Well, we'll be able to know exactly what it is and hopefully pull it out and store it again and use it again next year. Speaking of dahlias, we've actually had a number of flowers since the tour we did that I'll quick show you. They're not all looking their best. This is a Rebecca's World dahlia. It's supposed to have multiple different colors on it, which I was a little skeptical about. And as you can see right now, they're all the same, even though they are 2 tubers. So we'll just have to see if maybe the colors come with time. These are the first blooms. And we have another one over here that is blooming for the first time. Oh, it's got a Japanese beetle on it. I don't have any of my things. This is called a Hawaii decorative dahlia, which also doesn't have quite as much color as it was supposed to. I thought I'd kind of bring you along. It's a bit hodgepodgey, and as I just said, it's starting to rain and it's not supposed to stop for the next several hours, which wasn't forecasted originally today, though it is, I did mention, quite humid, so that's not surprising to me. So I think I'm gonna end this video here, and we'll just have to finish mulching another time. My dad actually, I wanted to mulch the area that in one of our last videos at the cottage, we did a pretty big weed, and my dad got like this area all behind me to about here mulched, and a good chunk up there. So it's a pretty small area that I think that might be able to even knock out without me. I just wanted to button it up so it was good to go. But I am really pleased with some of the maintenance work we got done and the things in our plant hoard we got planted. We're going to be back to the cottage. I'm not sure if it'll be the next video or the one after. And we will be working on redoing the bamboo bed, which I am really excited about. If you guys have followed along with this garden's journey at all, we did a lot of redefining of beds last fall. And the one bed we hadn't tackled was the bamboo bed, in all honesty, because it's a bit much. But we are going to be tackling that in the next coming weeks. and we will be bringing you guys along for that as well. We're also going to be heading back to the city garden quite soon. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that'll probably be the next video you see, where there are going to be some changes happening. You'll have to come back. If you guys are new to my channel, we document 2 gardens here. This is the cottage garden, which is actually where my parents now live. So I should start calling it my parents' garden, but it's one that I spent a lot of time in and done a lot of development in. And so I really like bringing you guys along here, especially because there's some larger projects that are fun to watch. And I also document my home garden in the city, which is an urban setting, as you might guess. And that's the one that's going to have some changes, and so you're going to have to check back to see what those changes might be. And I'll also link, we just did a August city garden tour, which it was looking great. So I'll link that here in case you wanted to learn more about it. I really appreciate you joining me today. If you liked this video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.